Hey, hi, hello. And we're back with another React. Hey guys, so last video was a little bit of a hot mess. I just wanted to get some of my thoughts out. And speaking of hot messes, that's actually the video we're going to react to today from Chantel. So we're going to be reacting to her hot mess deleted chat. This is once more the highlights, thanks to Just Saying. You guys know, couldn't do this without her. There's a few other content creators out there too who are really like doing God's work, but Just Saying is the one that I rely on the most because she like does all the hard work for me. I just watched her video and I condensed down some of the points in there that I wanted to talk about, and we're going to react to that. It's about 8.5 minutes long. I'm hoping I can get through this in a relatively speedy fashion, but you guys know the spiel. I talk. Can't help it. All right, let's jump into it.
Hi. Sorry, I can't figure out, like, for some reason the option is slow mode is not there. Beautiful. Carolyn, oh, angry? Maybe a little. I'm dealing with some shit in my fucking life. Not Dom related this time.
I can't imagine that the fallout from the Dom Shannon situation isn't having an effect on her, like, quote unquote personal life, right? Like with her parents and whatnot. I can't imagine that her mom, her sister, even her grandmother, if she knows, that they wouldn't look at this and be like immensely upset by it. Because obviously, if there was somebody coming to you and saying, hey, I think that the spouse of your, like, not spouse, sorry, God forbid, the partner of your daughter is beating her, that would be a cause for great concern. And I think that that's just not something she wants to deal with. We've seen this, it's like a thread with her repetitively, right? We've seen it a lot where she wants all of the initial love and support that comes with it. She likes knowing that people are there. It validates to her that no matter how repulsive she's behaving, that that it's still acceptable because there's still people out there who love her. And we've seen that she takes one person saying it's fine to meaning everybody is fine with it, which is why when people come at her online saying that's unacceptable behavior, she says that she thinks that they're trolls because she thinks they're outliers, right? People out of the norm who are taking exception to what she's doing, when in reality, the vast majority of people looking at her behavior would think there is something wrong with this. This isn't the way you should be acting. So I can't imagine that that's been exactly easy on her. I'm sure that they're giving her what she defines as shit, what other people would define as love and concern.
I'm having a snack. Hi, Messy Jessie, the Punisher. No, not Shannon. Leah. My room looks clean. Looks him to see.
Yeah, because if you're just basing it on looks, her room looks clean. She also looks clean. She also looks like a relatively normal, regular, sane person. And I don't mean to, I don't know if I want to stand behind the statement of like sarcastically calling her sane, when in reality what I mean, she seems like a well-adjusted person. She isn't. We know this for a fact. We just see it in her history of continuous abuse of various substances, legal and illegal.
Actually, I'm down 5 pounds. I weighed myself today. This morning. But I didn't pig out yesterday, did I? What did I have yesterday? Did I pig out at night? You saw me eat what I ate.
All right, 2 things here. I said before that her weight is going to be the biggest indicator of whether or not she's still doing hard drugs because her eating behaviors haven't changed. We've been seeing a lot of her, and she's been eating a crap ton. And it's not just a matter of food, right? Food is one part of the equation. It is the biggest part of the equation, but the other part of the equation you want to consider is her activity level. She's been very sedentary outside of when she says she's with Dom and she's having sex. Given how much difficulty she has moving, I can't imagine that she's doing some of the more strenuous of activities when it comes to coitus. So I can't imagine that that is giving her as much of a workout as one would think. At the end of the day, she's still consuming either to stay at the weight that she is or to gain weight. There is no possible way with the way that she's eating that she is losing weight naturally. Which brings me back to, how is she losing the weight? I had a couple of people say in my comments that they weren't sure how cocaine could affect your metabolism and like how it keeps you from gaining weight. It doesn't actually affect your metabolism. It disrupts the ability for your body to absorb fat from the food that you eat. And malabsorption of fat is one of the biggest reasons why people who are on cocaine tend to lose a massive amount of weight. It's why they tend to be so skinny. And it's honestly why it's popular with like supermodels and stuff like that. It helps them retain their extreme skinny figure. So the fact that she is losing weight here is very concerning to me. It was concerning when we thought she was doing it naturally with Ozempic, right? If you're losing weight without doing anything at all, there's been no change in your behavior, and all of a sudden you're dropping pounds, you probably want to go see a doctor. Still, I'm not definitive right now. I don't want to like make a very hard statement here. I still think that she's been abusing this whole time, but I could be wrong. And we'll just have to wait and observe the situation a little bit more before I really feel comfortable being like, even internally, to be like 100% I was right. Because 5 pounds for someone of her weight is just a blip. You know, she could have had a hormonal shift. She could just not have gone to the toilet today. She could be retaining a little bit of extra fluid. That can happen when you're that fat. So
why is everyone stressed out in my life?
Sorry, one more thing I wanted to mention about that previous statement. She also said that she doesn't remember what she ate last night, and that really concerns me as well, because not being so high that you can't remember what you were doing is, I would think it's very concerning.
Even the cats.
Oh, sorry about the volume. Let me turn it up a little.
We're going to start working out soon. We're going to come up with a workout plan. Yes. I'm not going to tell you that.
She often makes these plans where she's like, I'm going to start working out soon. I'm going to, you know, get a workout plan in. It is a way of delaying taking any actual action, because Chantel has this habit of saying that, well, I'm thinking about it, I'm planning it out, and therefore that is an action in and of itself, right? The mental energy that I'm expending towards doing this physical thing is an action in and of itself, and therefore if I don't move beyond that, well, I've still accomplished something. The idea of being able to tick something off your list is actually it's a good one, right? People really like that. That's why it gives people so much satisfaction. That's why I often say, like, if you're feeling unproductive, unmotivated, or even if you're having like some depressive symptoms, just doing one thing that you can conclusively check off your list, like going to take a shower, just being able to say, I did a thing today. I took a shower. It can be really, really motivating. It's same thing with like a really big task. If you break it down into pieces and you can say, I accomplished this part of it, I accomplished this part of it, it can be really motivating to help you keep going.
I'm tweaking. What does that even mean?
She knows very well what it means. She wasn't She wasn't born yesterday, right? Like, I really hate when she pretends that she doesn't understand what that means. You want to tell me that you were this wild party girl who did all of these drugs with her friends, who's had like all of these liaisons with gentlemen callers, and you've never heard the word tweaking before? Ma'am, please.
Like, I've heard all this legal, I didn't even know this is Have you ever stayed with this man for more than 24 hours? Yeah. Oh, I mean, he's sleeping, so what am I going to do? I'm just laying there watching him snore. So I'm going to go home, go live, eat. I have to do what I have to do, you know?
Such an extensive list of things she has to do. She's got to go home. She's got to eat. You know, one can't forget eating.
Not night schedule, he's not really. We don't want to.
You're not on a night schedule. A schedule implied that you've planned it out. You just don't care. You've devolved into it every single time.
But they're talking about eyebrows, new child. What the fuck? Being a hater. I like this last year match my dress.
All right, look. People can dislike how you do your eyebrows. Remember when I had the slit in my eyebrow, which I really want to do again? A lot of people didn't like my eyebrows. That's fine. You can not like it. I don't mind you not liking the way I do my eyebrows. I don't care if you guys don't like the way I do my makeup or my hair or my clothes. It's irrelevant. I do it because it makes me happy. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. So if you guys don't like it, please go ahead. You don't have to like it. And you can let me know that you don't like it either. It's not going to hurt my feelings because no offense, I don't do it for you. I do it for me, right? But the fact that she's just so, the way that she's just she gets so mad, so irrationally mad when someone is like, when someone tells her, why do you do this or why do you do that? It just speaks of insecurity. And it's not to say that I'm a very self-secured person. I never feel insecurity. Obviously, you guys know this. I'm very insecure myself about some stuff. But when you're putting it on blast like that, I would just say be careful. Because when you are this obvious about your insecurity without owning up to the fact that it's an insecurity, sometimes it can agitate people into poking at it a little bit more. Just have a little self-awareness, that's all.
They do, right? That's my guess. You want some?
They do?
Well, actually, I don't have to sneak out. He's like, if you tell me you're going to I just appreciate that. He's like, you don't need without telling me? They wait something, he's like, where are you? But yeah, no, I don't sneak out. I'm said, if I want to go, I'm going to go. And I'll just message you and tell you that. So.
Is that a normal thing when you're seeing somebody for a prolonged period of time that you just have to sneak out? Because that makes me feel like she doesn't feel comfortable enough just telling him, hey, I need to leave at this time. Or, hey, I'm going to be going by. Because then he might ask her to either stay or do something that she's not particularly comfortable with. I wouldn't think just staying would be too much, because if he's awake, then, she wants to be there a lot of the time I've seen. But I don't know. It just strikes me as being so odd. I've never experienced that where I've been with someone and I've been like, oh, okay, I got to leave. But if I tell them, it'll be weird. So I'll just sneak out in the middle of the night. I can imagine she's much more comfortable there. All of her stuff is there. Her cats are there. Her CPAP machine is probably there. And her weed is there, right? I don't know if she's sharing her weed with him or not, but I would imagine that she'd want to make herself seem most appealing when she's in front of him, because this is the person that she's having sex with. And I don't think that her being stoned out of her mind, eating like a pig, are things that are going to make someone feel attracted to you. So I think she feels comfortable because she feels like she can be herself, her most authentic self, when she's at home in front of Pete, who does not give a shit.
You should get rid of last week's number. We're not sure about animals. They fucking hit my car. Look at that.
Chantel has bad vision. Now, fun fact, I myself have very poor vision, right? I have, it's like 5.5 in one eye and 5.75 in the other eye. I have like really poor vision. And then I've got like family who are like basically just 0.25 away from being considered like legally vision impaired. Not anymore because they got LASIK eye surgery, but they weren't before they got the LASIK. And so I can understand it's like a hard thing, right? Like not having great vision sucks. But because I don't have great vision, I also recognize that if I don't wear my contacts or my glasses, that I put other people at risk, because you can't see the lines. Like if you've never been vision impaired, it's not like seeing double. That's what happens when you're concussed. But it's like when you're driving, right, and the lines seem blurry, like the edges of where the road is, where the stoplights are, everything seems very blurry. And so she's driving here in the middle of the night, dark, potentially compromised, potentially on her phone, potentially eating, potentially smoking, distracted to all high hell, and then she can't really see the road all that well. It's a recipe for disaster. And I know, here it's just animals, which I don't think is just anything, because obviously animals feel pain and it's like disgusting that she doesn't seem to recognize that. But even beyond that, what if this had been a person? She lives in an apartment complex, right? There are other people there. I'm betting that there's families there with small children who like to play outside. Sometimes small children, much like animals, don't really realize the danger that cars pose to them. Like my parents live in like the suburbs, right? And when I'm driving on their inner streets, I drive at 15 miles an hour through their neighborhood, because there's so many kids here. They're literally playing on the road all the time. They'll jump out in front of your car without any kind of provocation. The speed limit is technically 25, but it's irrelevant, because I'm trying to be the most careful that I possibly can, because God forbid anything happen. And the fact that she's okay with just driving with her vision being compromised like that makes me feel like she really doesn't care, because it is uncomfortable, especially if you haven't worn them in a while. My grandmother was like this. My grandmother didn't like wearing glasses because she's like, it gives me a really bad headache. She hadn't grown up wearing glasses, and when she got older, she couldn't stand the headaches that it would give her because her number was so high. My grandmother also didn't drive anywhere, so it's like, okay, like her vision being compromised didn't affect anybody really other than her, because it made her a little unsteady when she was alive. But Chantel drives everywhere. She drives Pete's everywhere. It is unacceptable for her to be driving without her vision being correct. God.
You're an idiot, child. I hope you know that. If you didn't, I just told you, and I'll tell you every day. Yes, I've been stabbed in my Well, stabbed you?
when you are an unreliable narrator, right? One of the really great things about reading a book sometimes is that you'll come across books that are very well done from an unreliable narrator's point of view, right? And it's great because then you get to experience confusion with the audience, that, like, you know what I mean? Like you get to experience confusion in a way that I think makes it really engaging, because you don't know when a person is telling the truth. You don't know if they know that they're telling the truth, and it can be really, really good. I really like those narratives when they're done well. When they're done poorly, it just comes across bad. But the problem with Chantal is that she's not a book, she's not a story, she's an unreliable narrator, and she's not pleasant to watch. And what ends up happening is that we watch this woman who lies to us, who keeps the truth from us, who actively goes back and rewrites her own history. Remember, we broke up. I broke up with BB. It makes it very difficult for us to know what is and is not true. So sometimes when people say something that would not be, like if someone came up to you and said that, oh yeah, Jazz has been stabbed, you'd be like, I don't think that's true. That doesn't sound like the kind of thing that Jazz would either keep from us or disclose to us in either case. How could you possibly know that she's been stabbed? Because I don't ever really talk about it, and you have no reason to suspect that I could be lying to you, right? If you come to me and you say, oh, have you been stabbed? And I say, nope, that didn't happen. Why would you think I'm lying? I don't have a history of keeping things from you guys. I don't disclose personalized stuff, but I don't have a history of lying to you, and I don't have a history of admitting that I'm lying to you. So when you come on here and you say, oh yeah, I've been stabbed, you know, people are such idiots, they'll believe anything. Well, we have to at least entertain the idea of it. Because once upon a time, if I had been, like a year ago, if someone had said that Chantal's doing cocaine, I would have laughed them out of the house. Of course Chantal doesn't do cocaine. That's ridiculous. But as I look at her now, I don't know. Dude, I don't know. You've got glass stuck in your foot. Have you addressed that? Like, I don't know what's going on with you. You could have been, for all I know, been like mildly stabbed. I don't know if mildly stabbed is a thing, but you could have been assaulted with like a knife or something like that, and someone is just colloquially referring to it as being stabbed by Dom because he's an abusive person.
Sorry, but I can't. Stupidity. If you're stupid, you come here, I'm gonna yell at you. And if you don't like it, go cry.
I'm gonna remind her of this when she gets upset that people are calling her stupid for like the behavior that she displays. If you're stupid, I'm gonna yell at you, and I hope you cry. And you know, if you don't like it, then well, sucks to be you, I guess. Stupid is stupid, right? Even when you're the one displaying the stupidity. Let's have the same energy, right?
Did you watch? No, I don't watch her. She's a fucking idiot. I don't watch fucking French right idiots. She's an idiot. And a fucking liar. And I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, here's the thing. I don't have enough time to watch everybody's channels, and so I don't. I've watched some of French Fried Girl's videos in the past. I haven't kept up with her. To be frank, I haven't really watched a lot of YouTube recently, so I'm pretty behind in everybody's videos. Can someone tell me what exactly she's referring to, if you guys have the context here that I'm missing? Because my understanding was that French Fried Girl had called her, they'd had a conversation. Foodie Beauty went online and lied about what the conversation entailed. And I think that Frenchie did a response video, but I don't know, I haven't seen it, and so I'm like pretty out of the loop. So if someone has the context here, I would really appreciate that. No pressure though, because you know, I can also do that myself. Just if you know it, and because I'm not going to have the time otherwise to watch a really long video. I'd really appreciate it. Also, I don't know very much about French Fried Girl, but from what I've seen, she hasn't really lied about anything. I'd be much more willing to believe her recounting of the conversation than I would be willing to believe Chantal. That said, of course, you got to keep in mind that, you know, like, people have their own interpretations of what a conversation is like. Like, sometimes partner and I will talk, and I'll say something that's, like, totally I thought was, like, a joke, and he'll get really upset because he's like, that was such a mean thing to say. Because we all bring our, like, own perspective, our own lens, and our own life experiences to any conversation and situation that we're in. So you could experience a phone call two completely separate ways depending on your personal life. And that's why I feel like the Gabby Hanna and Trisha Paytas situation is a little bit tricky for me, because I fully believe that Gabby Hanna is like an awful person, and I believe that Trisha Paytas is an awful person. But I think that their dynamic there, like the way that Trisha Paytas talks about Gabby and the way that Gabby talks about Trisha, is a miscommunication in the way that they read a situation. That Gabby sees them having mild communication as a form of friendship, and Trisha Paytas basically sees it as a form of acquaintanceship, almost like somebody who is in the same space as I am, who I kind of know, right? Like, I am very much the kind of person who talks to everybody. I have, like, not friends, I would say, but I'm friends with almost like anyone that you will give me. I can like talk to them and I can be friendly with them. That doesn't mean that everyone is my friend, that I'm willing to confide in everyone the same, that I'm willing to engage with everybody the same. There are people that I feel more strongly towards than others. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be nice to you. That doesn't mean that I won't have conversation with you. And for some people, just being nice and having a conversation can equate to friendship.
I'm about to.
When is she not in a bad mood? Anytime she has to do an open chat, she's immediately in a bad mood. She wants to excuse her bitchiness. She'll do it again in a little bit too, where she talks about how, you know, well, I haven't smoked anything, so therefore I'm in a bad mood. No, you're in a bad mood because you're in a bad mood. You can't excuse it by just saying, well, I'm in a bad mood, therefore I get to be a bitch to my audience and be an asshole to people who are talking to me, call them idiots, call them like morons, and it's just because I'm in a bad mood. So it's okay. It's acceptable to behave that way. Your bad mood is your problem. It's not other people's responsibility. I am not in the business of managing other people's moods and behaviors. I'm in the business of managing my own mood and behavior. So if I'm here in a bad mood, it's up to me to either disengage from the situation, walk away, and come back when I'm in a cooler frame of mind, or it's up to me to just power through it, right? And if this is your job, then you got to learn to power through it, girl. Because if I'm at work and I'm in a bad mood, it does not matter. It doesn't matter one whit whether or not I'm in a bad mood, because I still have to perform my job. I still have to do things. I still have to submit, forms. I still have to do dissections. I cannot wait on being in a better mood to engage with my work, including, by the way, public speaking and talking to other coworkers. And it should be the same with you. If this is your job, if this is how you make money, then treat it like a job. Just saying I'm in a bad mood isn't good enough. It just isn't.
She had double my viewers, but she's talking about me. So, yeah.
What that says to me is that you are so boring that anyone can make your content look better than you can make your content look. Also, there's, like I've said, there's a certain level of introspection that I think people really like to see, which is why I think anyone comes to my channel, is Foodie Beauty has a lot of perplexing behavior, and people like to talk to other people about why she behaves the way that she behaves. Chantal has no clue about why she behaves the way that she behaves, and I relate to her in a lot of ways. I really do. I see a lot of myself in her, which it's not necessarily a flattering thing. It's not necessarily a negative thing either. It just is what it is. And that's why I feel like I can talk with some authority about like why she might be doing what she's doing, because I was that girl in some points in my life. Not in all the ways, but yes, definitely in some ways. That's why people want to watch other channels. That's why French Fried Girl has such a large viewership. Also, let's be frank here. You put out 1 billion videos a day now. Nobody wants to see that much of anybody else. Okay? I love Partner, but I don't want to see that much of him every single day. I would lose my absolute mind. I need to go to work and talk to other human beings. Same thing with her. And it's even worse in this case because I can't even talk to her. You're only ever talking at her, even if you're literally in chat, because Chantal doesn't absorb anything anyone else is saying. She has this mentality of waiting to talk and not listening, right? Which is a really big problem that I think a lot of people have. When someone is talking to you, listen to what they're saying, absorb what they're saying, and then think about what they're saying before talking. Chantal doesn't do any of that. She looks at a very surface level reading of what anyone is saying, if she looks at it at all, and then immediately the first thing that comes to mind is what she fires off with. And then she has the doubly negative trait of doubling down on any stupid fucking thing that she says. That's why every once in a while I'll say something and I'll retract it immediately. Because I'm talking to you live. My brain to mouth filter is only so good. And sometimes I say things and I realize, you know what, that came across sounding different than how I'd intended. And there's no harm in that. People misspeak. It's a thing that legitimately happens. So you can take words back, but only if you are thinking about what you're saying, only if you're absorbing what the other person is saying to you. Not this, not just regurgitating.
Well, I'm not sure. If you're defending her, you probably watch her then, and you are okay with what she says, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, the Punisher has been a loyal watcher of Chantel's for a while now. At least I'm assuming if it's the same Punisher that's always in her like mods and always comes up in her chats. So the fact that she's going that hard at him is a little surprising to me. And also, watching somebody doesn't mean agreeing with somebody. I watch all of Chantel. I barely agree with anything she says. I watch a lot of reaction channels too, right? Like I watch Milk Tea Reacts, I watch Yaba, I watch French Fried Girl sometimes, I watch Charlie Gold, I watch Callie and Shane. And I agree with what they're saying about some stuff, and I don't agree with what they're saying about other stuff. Each one of us has our own differing opinion. I don't have to mirror anybody else's opinion. They're my own. And that's why I think Chantel is so mad. What Chantel doesn't like is dissent in beliefs and opinions. What she believes is the only correct way to believe. What she thinks is the only correct way to think. And so the fact that he can watch French Fried Girl and think that some parts of what French Fried Girl is saying are, I'm just going to call her FFG, I think that might be shorter, what FFG is saying are correct and some parts might not be, that is not a thought that she has. Very black and white thinking is the only thing that she's ever really displayed. And honestly, it'll be her downfall. It is a very childish way to look at the world. Most people don't operate in that realm. We're not like good and evil, right? I'm not like good battling Chantel's evil here. We're all shades of gray here. Chantel is a problematic person on the internet monetizing their addiction. I'm a bored bitch on the internet talking about her. There are realms in which each one of us exists. I am not like a perfect angel. She is not like the most villainous villain to have ever lived. She's not like the guy who shoots Bambi's mom, you know? This is just the world that we live in. You have to recognize that there are shades of gray in everything and in everyone. And your inability to do that is going to cost you friends, relationships. It's going to cost you job opportunities. It's going to cost you just enjoyment and happiness in life in general.
Mm-hmm. Did you show any proof? Any proof? A liar? What's a liar?
I really wouldn't get on people about their spelling and their punctuation. I think that's incredibly pedantic. And I realize part of that is personal because I'm a very poor typer, and so I tend to make a lot of mistakes when I type. If you guys ever seen my Twitter, you'll know it's filled with poor grammatical issues. I'm bad at it. But beyond that, I think it's a really pedantic issue to get stuck on. Oh, you don't know how to spell a word. Yeah, I don't know how to spell a word. This is 2021. We have spell check. I'm going to spell shit wrong, okay? I'm a biochemist. I am not an English major. I don't know anything about this language. It's not even my first language. I don't speak any language as well, okay? Sue me. So when she gets on people for that, I find it very pedantic. Also, I wouldn't get on somebody else's case about intelligence, because getting on someone's nerve about oh, you can't even spell liar correctly, haha. People can very easily come back and say to you, haha, you couldn't even finish college, haha, you must be a moron. Neither of those two things are true. Not going to college doesn't mean you're stupid. Not knowing how to spell doesn't mean you're stupid. Just drop it. But what they're trying to say is that you're a liar. You're a liar, and that's why we can't believe you. Like I said, I'd be willing to listen to FFG's account more than I'd be willing to listen to Chantel's account, because Chantel is a liar, and admittedly so, right? She says multiple times, she's like, well, addicts lie, and I'm an addict. So you could be lying now. You've lied about multiple things in the past. We cannot believe anything you have to say. Everything that she says has to be taken with a grain of salt, much to my perpetual upsetness, because what it means is that even when she talks about her abuse, sometimes I find myself feeling suspicious. And as for showing proof, my understanding is this is a phone call. Unless the person is recording you, which, by the way, illegal in many, many parts of the world. I don't know about Canada specifically, but I know that in the U.S., some states have a two-party consent law. Some states have a one-party consent law. That means if you know and you're consenting to the recording, it's fine. It's mostly to prevent police from tapping your phones without a warrant, I think. And then a lot of states have a two-party consent law, which I think California and New York are two of those states, where it's both parties need to give consent to record a conversation. So unless you recorded the conversation, which could be illegal, and either way it could be ethically wrong, what proof could you possibly have to show? And like I said, FFG doesn't have to be right. I don't have to prove that what I'm saying is correct, because you guys know that when you come here, the only thing you're going to get is my opinions about Chantel's life. Chantel, however, has the truths about her life, right? In so much as there are absolute truths, right? Some stuff is just a matter of opinion and perception. But there are objective truths. Like, did he hit you? Did he smack you? Because if he did, then that is an objective fact that he is abusive. Because even if it's one time, it's still one too many. And please understand, I know my audience is mostly female, but if you're a guy out there, please understand that if your wife, your girlfriend, your partner hits you, that is also abuse. She's also being abusive. Abuse goes both ways. It doesn't mean that just because you're a guy, you can't get abused, and just because you're the woman hitting someone, that's not abuse, because they could theoretically defend themselves. Okay? Partner is a bigger person than I am. He is taller, he is broader, he is heavier, right? In all aspects, right? Now, the heavy thing goes back and forth because I am fat and he is not. But what I mean to say is that he's got like a crap ton of muscle on him. He's a sports guy, right? He does like the double black diamond skiing, and like he does like mountain biking. He's really into that random scary shit. And what that results in is that he could, if he wanted to, beat the crap out of me. He would never do that because he is like the gentlest person I know. But he could. He is stronger physically than I am. If I punched him, I am still the abusive asshole. End of the line, okay? So, getting back to this, you need to show evidence for what you are saying now if you want to be believed. If you don't want to be believed, you don't care, you don't have to. You don't have to prove anything to us, right? Fundamentally. But if you want to be believed, you're going to have to show evidence because you have a history of lying. I can't believe anything you have to say. If you want me to believe you, you have to show me why you should be believed.
Baby, hello. Nothing bad's gonna happen to me.
That is literally the story of her life. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. No, bad stuff can happen to you. Bad stuff happens to people all the time. It happens to good people all the time. And Chantel's not a good person. It happens to people who engage in no risky behavior, and Chantel's not that person. So when she says nothing bad is going to happen to me, I really do think that. I think that she believes that nothing bad will ever come of her choices. That no matter what risky behavior she engages in, she is somehow immune from the consequences of her actions. Or, known another way, she has main character syndrome.
It doesn't matter. Like, you can't do anything. Just keep living life.
Nobody wants to keep you from living your life, but that doesn't mean that if you're putting your life on the internet, people aren't going to have opinions about it. Part of the social aspect of the social media is that people will talk to you. And you know what? Not everyone's going to like what you have to say.
You know? What is she, the fucking savior by making up shit? Like, we're gonna have our own fucking life. Like, the same thing every stream, like.
How do you know it's the same thing every stream? I thought you said you didn't watch French Fried Idiots.
I'm not gonna show proof and like fucking block somebody.
Oh, good. So you're not showing proof either. So she doesn't have proof. You don't have proof. It's just her word versus your word. She said. And one of the she's is a notorious liar, so.
But how much is your proof?
Where's your proof?
How do you find proof card? You don't know that. How do you know he's the line? Just because he looks bad right now. He looks like a bad guy. That's why.
He doesn't look like a bad guy. He is a bad guy. If you hit a person, you are the bad guy. Right? There are very few cases in which somebody will say, oh, well, in a situation where I wasn't being threatened, where I wasn't worried about my life, where I wasn't worried about the safety, voluntarily hit another human being, that's that person come across looking good. And I'm saying that there's very few situations because I'm sure there's at least one out there, even though I can't think of any. If you attack somebody, if you hit somebody, you are the bad guy in that situation. Are you kidding me? He doesn't look like the bad guy. He is the bad guy.
No, I told you, but he's an ex, right? Just like he's exes. For a reason.
Yeah, because he broke up with you. Because you engaged in risky behavior that put your fertility at risk, and BB wanted children. And while there's nothing wrong with not wanting children or not being able to have children, he is not an ex because he was a bad guy. The reason that you and Pete are no longer together is because you cheated on Pete, because you were the piece of shit. You cheated on BB because you were the piece of shit. So when you come back to their exes for a reason, yeah, that reason is that you're a piece of shit. Like, what did you think you were going to prove here? And yeah, you didn't tell BB, but the next time you go crying to him, do you really expect that he's going to have sympathy for you when you actively lie and keep information from him? And he's one of the only stable people in her life that she actually seems to give a shit about. And I still think that's because she's a little hung up on him.
No, I didn't tell BB because I don't want to hear it anymore from anybody. I made my choice, and I don't want to hear it anymore. Like, I don't. If I fuck up, make a bad choice, oh well, that's life.
When you fuck up and make a bad choice, for the most part, yeah, that is just life. Shit happens. You're never going to make the right decision. Even if you think you're making the best decision at the time, new information could come out later and totally fuck that up. It's irrelevant. Not really all that important. But when you are making a bad decision, knowing from the get-go that you're making a bad decision and that bad decision involves domestic abuse, understand that there could be dire consequences for you, right? There's a lot of situations in which you can laugh off what she says. Like her eating like 3 Nashville chicken sandwiches, that's a bad decision. Because that's obviously going to impact your health. But it's a very long-term impact. And because of the series of small bad decisions she makes when it comes to food, the individual effect of that, I would say, is almost negligible. When it comes to Dom, it is not. You weren't taking drugs, you got with him, you started taking drugs. You weren't being abused, you got with him, you started getting abused. When you continue to make that same kind of poor decision making when it comes to Dom, when it comes to your own health, I don't understand how you can just dismiss that as saying, well, I made the wrong decision. This could cost you your life. Do you understand that? The drugs and the abuse could cost you your life. Women die from domestic violence situations. And not hearing it from anybody. God forbid people care about you. God forbid people worry about you. God forbid any of that happen, right?
I learned my mistakes and move on and survive like this. Okay?
Would you guys, I think this is the most accurate statement. She said, move on from my mistakes and survive. And she doesn't say deal with my mistakes, right? She didn't say thrive. Because she's not doing any of those things. She just leaves them behind in the past, and all of the scars they leave behind stay with her. And as for, survive, that's all she's really doing here. She is technically living, but only in the most technical sense. She doesn't even do any of the things that she says she wants to do. She talks about it later on in here too, but she talks about how much, she wants to go to another country. She wants to do all of these things. She wants to be this bad bougie bitch. She wants to have all of these secret liaisons and whatnot and sleep with men all across the world. How are you going to do any of that if you can't board a plane safely? How are you going to do any of that when you can't sleep at someone's house without needing to take a CPAP machine? You can't even get your life together there. The things that you want to do, you can't do.
I never asked BB to give me advice. So I don't ask people for help or anything. And I'm not going to ever again, okay?
That's a blatant lie because she called every single one of her family members in the middle of the night asking them to come drive her to the hospital because she needed help. She calls BB. She said multiple times that I called BB and I spoke to him. She calls BB multiple times so that she can talk to him about what's going on in her life because he's one of the only stable, real adults in her life who can give her advice that she doesn't feel patronized by. And also, fundamentally, I think it's because BB doesn't call her. BB doesn't reach out to her. She reaches out to him, and BB is kind enough that he'll always pick up a call and he'll talk to her. But he doesn't reach out to her, right? And that gives her a level of control that she doesn't have with any of her other family members. Her mom will call her sister will call her grandma might call her. Pete lives in the house with her. She can get away from BB. She can just not accept his calls if she needs to. And that level of control over their relationship is what makes her feel so comfortable in reaching out to BB again and again and again. And honestly, I appreciate that BB is doing that for her because I think it comes from a place of caring, right? And I said this before. Yeah, maybe BB did not love her anymore towards the end, but you don't stay with somebody for 8 years unless you're getting something out of the relationship. And I think the thing he got out of the relationship was her company. And I think that at least for some portion of it, he did care about her. He did love her. So you're sitting there and you're saying, I'm never going to reach out to anybody again for help. No, you are. You are. Because you need the proof of validation. You need the proof of love that they can give you. You need to know that you're special to them. You need to know that you're loved by them. You need to know all of these things. And it's going to happen again when you are, once again feeling at your lowest. When you go through another breakup with Dom, right? You reach out to Shannon for help. You reach out to your parents for help. You reach out to BB for help. You reach out to your channel for help. Do you remember lying in your uncle's house saying that if you guys weren't there, I'd just be homeless and I'd be even more into drugs? You might not have said the words, help me, but that's still asking people for help.
I don't. people help you, they feel like they're entitled to your life, like, forever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's invasive.
It's not invasive. When people help you, it's because they care about you. And when they care about you, they want to make sure that you continue to do well. There's a huge difference between somebody feeling like they're entitled to portions of your life and somebody worrying that you could be dying. And if you don't see that, then you're even more childish than I'd expected. And once more, next time you reach out to somebody for help, don't expect that they'll give it to you. This is how you see it. Don't expect that you're going to have any friends. Like, why would I want to be friends with someone who sees my love for them as an obligation, who sees my care for them as a burden? I wouldn't want to be friends with that kind of person. Oh, by the way, if you guys are wondering why there's tape on this, I just realized you could see it. My sister's cat knows how to open that, and I don't want her peeing in it, so I put a little bit of tape on the drawers to hold it shut. Oops, sorry. And I got knobs for it, if you guys can see. Black knobs. I'm still waiting for the drawer pulls there, but I can't. It's like a weird size, so. Anyway.
What's wrong with being Muslim? Are you racist? Are you, like, prejudiced? What's the deal? You think you're not prejudiced? Most I'm sure a lot of you are. Do you queen? That's right.
I don't know. I saw a couple people asking, like, is he Muslim? Are you going to convert? All of those things. I don't really think he's a practicing Muslim. But even if he was, and even if she did, I don't really think it's relevant. What I didn't see was anybody saying, you know, how could you be with a Muslim person? That's disgusting, or anything like that. If I missed it, I missed it. But I just saw people saying, oh, are you going to? Which is a question. It's not a statement. It's not a, I don't know, it's not expressing disgust in any regard. So I feel like it really wasn't all that big. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. When she's calling other people out for being prejudiced, that's really funny to me. I've said before that I think Chantel is racist, and I stand behind that, by the way. I think that Chantel has a lot of inborn prejudice views. And I think she thinks that she's above that because she's like a Democrat, because she's like, she votes for the Liberal Party, because, you know, she's like socially quote unquote woke and she cares about all of these things. Look, I think the difference between somebody who is ignorant and between someone who's prejudiced and bigoted are the ability to recognize, listen, and grow. I've said stuff on this channel even, if you go back through my history, you'll find it. Stuff that has been wrong. I very recently on Twitter, I said something, I think it was on Twitter. I said, it was in a video and then I apologized on Twitter, that I used a term that referring to transgendered individuals that was like, it was an outdated term, but my brain like auto-corrected to that. And I should have used it, and I'm sure it caused hurt to some people. No, it was on Twitter. So I apologize on Twitter. But either way, it was not a cool thing of me to do. And I'm sorry, like, it was a misspeak on my part or a mistype on my part, but that doesn't excuse it. It was still the wrong thing to do. That's why when people tell me on my channel, well, you didn't need to apologize. No, I did. I was in the wrong, and I need to apologize for it. It might not have been intentional on my part, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't any hurt caused. And if me recognizing that I was in the wrong and saying sorry and moving on from that, if that like alleviates the potential hurt I might have caused, it costs me nothing to humble myself for a little bit. Literally nothing. And it comes with the opportunity to grow as a person. I really appreciate that. Like, there are so many creators on YouTube who make videos, who put them out, who talk about their own struggles in life and how they face different situations, including racism. And they do a fantastic job talking about their lived experiences with stuff like this. And it helps me grow as a person. I'm not entitled to any of that, but I appreciate it. And that's why I think that Chantel's a bigoted person. Because when stuff has been pointed out to her in the past, she hasn't grown from it, she hasn't learned from it, and she hasn't tried to make it like a thing that she understands in more detail. She hasn't tried to grow in any capacity from it. You know, I'll bring back to mind, she called Charlie Gold Charlie Cole. Bring back to mind the fact that she used the R word, and then people said, why are you using the R word? Her response was essentially, it's my emotional support slur. You know, she talks about, she told DC Media Girl, sorry, I'm mind blanked for a second. She told DC Media Girl to go react to the Holocaust. DC Media Girl is Jewish. Did she know that DC Media Girl was Jewish? I have a feeling that she had an inkling. Maybe she did. Maybe I'm completely off base here. Maybe she had no idea. But you didn't know. then you should have absolutely unequivocally apologized. Because that's not like a small thing to say to somebody. If I'd said that and I realized, like, if I said to somebody, well, I don't understand, why are you focusing so hard on my actions? Don't you want to talk about something more important? Like, why don't you talk about the Ba'ath era in, like, Iraq? If you guys don't know, the Ba'ath era, about 6 million Shiite Muslims were killed in Iraq by Saddam's government, buried in mass graves. Like, horrifying tragedy. I say that to someone. I don't want to use the example of the Holocaust. I'm using just another tragedy. I don't know why that was the first one that came to mind. But say that, I say that to someone and they're like, are you kidding? Like, my family lived through that. I would immediately take back my words. Because it doesn't matter that what I said was unintentional. I still caused someone real pain, a real living human being. I caused an immense amount of pain, potentially. I don't have to know for sure. They don't have to like lay bare their soul to me to recognize the amount of pain that can cause someone. And the fact that she stood behind her statement, then doubled down on her statement, is problematic to me. I've talked also in the past about how I feel when it comes to transferred guilt, when it comes to like your associates. I don't believe that everybody needs to account for everybody else's words, right? There are, I'm sure, some creators in this community that I have watched and maybe even endorsed that have said stuff that they're like, oh yeah, they said this awful thing. I take Callie, for instance. I had Callie on my channel a couple times. I really like Callie. And someone found a tweet from her from 11 years ago saying that, well, Callie used the R word. How can you be so hard on her and not be so, be so hard on Chantel and not be so hard on Callie? And I'll say a couple of words in regards to transferred guilt, especially because Shani for Christ comes up a lot in terms of just talking about Chantel. There is a difference between, in my mind at least, there's a big difference between saying, hey, I don't really know everything about another person. I don't want to get into it because I don't really know the details, right? There have been a couple of instances of people that wanted me to talk about, I think one of the people from the Geek Room. I have very minimal contact with them. I watch their streams very rarely, and even on Twitter. It's not nothing like bad about them. It's just I can't watch everybody. I only have limited hours in a day, right? And so I can't answer for why they did or did not do anything because I am not affiliated with that. Would you ask me to talk about why another biochemist in another building talked about something? I know we might both be biochemists, we might have professional courtesy towards one another, but that doesn't mean that I am responsible for anything that they put out. That's on them. Right now, if I'm on my channel, I'm endorsing somebody and I'm giving them a voice like I was with Callie, then I am at least somewhat tangentially responsible for what they say and do. So in terms of the Callie situation, I can say, yes, 11 years ago, when she was significantly younger, she said something that was not nice. Is she still the same person now? Because that's more important. Anyone can say sorry. Sorry is an easy word to throw around. But did she change and learn from her behavior? Has she said anything like that recently? Or even 4 years ago or 5 years ago? Not to my knowledge. So I can see that she's changed and grown as a person, and therefore it's no longer a relevant point to discuss. Or if they really are saying something, I did give my voice to somebody and it turns out they're a bad person, then you retract that and you say, I don't support that person, and you don't associate with them anymore. The reason why Chantel's association with Shani for Christ comes up continually is because not only did she give voice to Shani for Christ on her channel. Shani for Christ's messages were often read. She talked about it. Chantel talked about her on her channel multiple times. But Shani for Christ's racist history and her continued racist behavior online was brought to Chantel's attention multiple times. And Chantel then, at that point, chose to continue to associate with her. She chose to accept super chats from her, right? If someone is doing something that's racist and toxic, then you can just as easily turn to them and say, I don't support you and I don't want to talk about you. That's it. That's all you really have to do. But she didn't do that. She continued to give Shani a voice on her channel. She continued to talk about Shani on her channel. She continued to support her, quote unquote, right? She continued to just endorse her, and she continued to stand behind what Shani was saying. And then when it no longer served Chantel and Shani was no longer giving her large sum of money, then she went back and she says, well, I didn't know that they were racist, and now that I found out that they're racist, I no longer stand behind them. People don't forget that sort of stuff. So don't sit here and say that other people are prejudiced based on nothing but the fact that we don't like you. A lot of people don't like you for a very variety of reasons. Some of them legitimate, some of them not, right? I'm sure there are people out there who hate Chantel just because she's fat. But a lot of people look at her behavior like I do, and they think, this is not a person I really want to have any association with. And I think that that is fair.
I don't want, no, I don't have support for things I do, like, in this case, I mean, I don't know, there's nothing to support, really. You know?
Okay, everyone who's here, who knows someone or who is someone who is her, like they give her super chats, they like go into her chats and they're like mods and they're like paid subscription members. I want you guys all to unsubscribe. Okay? Everybody, unsubscribe from her channel, stop watching everything that she does. Because obviously she doesn't need support, right? Those are all forms of support. People who give me money on my channel, who become patrons, who, by the way, Patreon, my Patreon is linked down below. You know, always be plugging. They are supporting me in what I do. It's not verbal support, but it is monetary support. You don't need support? Then fine. Fuck you. Go do it on your own. Okay? Don't ask people for money on the internet. Don't come on here talking about how if people didn't give you money, then you'd be homeless and doing more drugs. Don't come on here and like ask for people to like listen and how like sympathize with me, but because people are being so incredibly mean to whittle me. Don't do that shit. Because that's also asking for support. What you don't want is support that comes with any sort of accountability. You don't want people in your real life who actually love you and have the ability to monitor the whole entirety of your behavior, not just the bits and pieces that we see from thousands of miles away. You don't want support from those people because those people can show up and check you on your bullshit in real life. And God forbid that happened.
I don't know anything before. At the end of the day, like I told you guys, only suggested negative things. You guys don't know anything beyond that.
You didn't tell us anything, first of all. Shannon was the one who told us, and you've confirmed that they're true. So either both of them are liars, or this is actually a thing that happened. And more importantly, people are not all you. We're not all idiots. We don't all watch somebody who's being abusive and think, there's probably more to them. There's more layers, you know. They're like an onion. There's layers to them. And some of them are probably not covered in mold.
That's why I'm not going to defend myself anymore. I'm not going to talk about it.
You can't defend yourself. What you're doing is indefensible. And as for not talking about it, let's see. When the end of the month comes and you need money, we'll see whether or not you talk about it.
And I'm not going to talk about him, so...
I'll see.
Well, if I'm not supposed to be on my channel, I'm going to. If you like it, then fucking report me. Or don't watch me.
Hear that, everyone? Don't watch her. Go to the farms if you need to, okay? That's her saying that you shouldn't come to her channel to watch it. And with an attitude like that, I can't imagine why French Fried Girl has so many more viewers than you.
I'm like, just like, fed up. Like, I don't care anymore. I really don't. I bring up people ask me. That's all you want to talk about.
Yeah, imagine only wanting to discuss the abusive ex-partner that you continue to see on your channel of a woman who never leaves her room and all she does is eat Nashville fried chickens. It's funny. Why would anybody want to discuss the only thing that's happening in her life?
Who cares? You know what's things that are important too? Like, who cares? What his fucking mattress is? What his air conditioner is? I know that. I can be bitchy when I'm angry. I do.
I think the reason that people care so much about the mattress on the floor thing is, like I said, he has a bed that he doesn't actually let Chantel use, it seems like. And that's, like, weird and concerning. And also, it's just weird that he has two beds, but whatever. The reason people talk about his air conditioner and his phone brand is because you seem to often lose things that somehow he has a perfect replica of in his home. And it makes us think that maybe he's just taking your shit, right? And if he is, if you are supporting him financially, if you are giving him all of your stuff, why? Why does he, a grown-ass man, not have the ability to support himself?
I just fucking calm down and smoke this. I don't smoke bitchy like this. On edge, fucking bitchy. Annoyed.
Okay. I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. If the only way you are a pleasant, tolerable person to be around is when you are high off your mind, I think it's reasonable to assume that maybe you're just a bitch. Consider that, maybe. If your default personality is bitch, 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 then maybe, just maybe, you're a bitch and the weed is just helping you to not be a bitch. It's not that you are a nice person and then sometimes the bitchiness comes out. Like, I'm a raging bitch when I'm PMSing. I have a very hard time controlling my emotions and I get extreme anxiety, which makes me even more irritable. So I can fully admit that. There are times when I'm a bitch. I'm being a bitch right now because I'm mad at her, right? But if the only way you cannot be a bitch is to be high as balls all of the time, all that says to me is that your default personality is a bitch. It says to me that your default personality sucks. And even you don't want to be around it.
Excuse me. Prejudice? Oh yeah, there's the compilations of supposed whatever, like, you guys are crazy. I'm not even gonna talk to you.
Yeah, once more, there's no defense, so she's like, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Supposed instances of me being prejudiced, like telling a Jewish woman to go react to the Holocaust. That's supposed, right? That only theoretically happened. She didn't actually say that. She didn't actually mean that. So what if the lady was actually Jewish? So what if it caused her immense pain?
You don't deserve it.
We don't deserve it. But she deserves apologies from us. She deserves consideration from us. She deserves empathy and understanding from us. Go fuck yourself.
I like your personality better on edibles. See?
I like your personality better when you're not being you. Because you're a bitch and you're difficult to be around.
How do you know Joy? You don't know him. You don't know if he loves me or how he's going to love me or would I give him any more if I give him anything. Lambo, let's have a cancel because of you. Thank you, Lambo. I appreciate all of you guys.
We know from what you tell us, and we're not idiots, and so unlike you, we can actually read intentions behind his actions, right? We can actually see when somebody's being a jackass. This is why perspective is so important. A lot of times when in the middle of a situation, it's hard to get a real handle on what's happening.
If I'm just left with finding fucking, if I'm just left with plain cheeseburgers and Lambo, then whatever. I don't beg people to be in my life. I don't. I've never, you know? I'm sure maybe I put my thumbs up. I enabled it for all of you. Thumbs down. Go.
She doesn't beg people to be in her life, but she does guilt people when they don't want to be in her life. She does test them to see if they still love her.
Oh, everyone go now and thumbs down my stream.
Yes, please do. Actually, no, don't. I'm gonna stop reacting right now. Maybe. There's like 2.5 minutes. I'll go through. The reason why I think she's like, go thumbs down my stream, obviously there's like the very YouTube-y reason, which is that more engagement is good for your channel, is good for you. There's also the other reason, the real reason why she's okay with that. And it's also like the same thing that she does with like people in her real life. Any attention is good attention to her, right? It's still validation, positive or negative, it's still validation to her, right? Because then if people are really mad at her, well, at least they're thinking about me, right? At least I'm at the forefront of their thoughts. And she has that very childish mentality of all publicity is good publicity. That's how she behaves. If she can't get positive attention, then I guess negative attention will have to do.
You can check more of that again. What are you talking about? They're not going to see anything. If I don't have a paycheck, I'm going to tell you. Do I ever ask you for money? No.
You don't ask us for money? You don't come on here and say like, why don't I have any super chats? Hey, if you want to talk, if you want to say that stuff, give me $15 a month. Are you kidding me? Get the fuck out of here.
Thank you, Angela. Why am I letting people down here, girl? I guess that's sour. It's my fucking life, you know? So, what does my gut smell like? Ask your mother or your wife.
Okay. She's letting people down. I left that second part in because, gross. And she's letting people down. She is letting people down in her life. People, like, parents have an expectation of how they expect kids to live their lives, right? Sometimes it's reasonable, sometimes it's unreasonable. If I ever have kids, my number one expectation for them is just going to be, I just want them to live like a happy, healthy, content life, right? I would want them to be financially independent because I think that being financially independent leads to you having the ability to be happier much easier than if you weren't financially dependent. Like, I hate that phrase, money can't buy you happiness, right? But the second part of that is really true. It is easier to cry in a Ferrari. Genuinely. A lot of stress in people's lives comes from not being able to afford the things that they need. Wants are a different thing. If you're a well-adjusted person, wants are a different thing. So when your parents see you behaving the way that you're behaving on the internet, I'm sure that they're disappointed. Nobody wants to see their daughter eating themselves to death in an abusive relationship, begging for money on the internet, with zero self-awareness and seemingly zero ability to get out of it.
Half for expectation. I'm not. Why is it more pizza, more pizza, more pizza? Fuck. Like, he's a grown man. Like, we are grown adults. Like, I want to have a private family life. I want to be alone. I want to travel. I don't want to have ball and chain people around me all the time. Okay? I don't. I know that sounds mean, but...
So 2 things. One, she's not entirely wrong in that if she doesn't want to live with Pete anymore, she doesn't have to live with Pete anymore. Pete is a grown-ass man. He can Uber if he needs to anywhere. I think the reason people are so sympathetic to him right now is because he's going through a major like episode in his life where his depression is pretty severe. He's doing everything he can to help, and people feel bad that at this point is when she's like, oh yeah, you know, I want to move out and I don't want to live with Pete anymore. He's having a hard time. You don't have to live with him forever, but you can't support your friend when he's having such a difficult time. That is disgusting behavior. And Pete has been a good friend to her, okay? Pete has been a really good friend to her. There's nobody else in her life who puts up with her bullshit the way that Pete does. And while I think that he's a doormat, and while I don't think that he should be behaving this way, because I think that his silence in a lot of ways enables her awful toxic behavior, I also think that he's deserving of your sympathy and your care. You don't have to care about him all the time, but maybe care about him right now.
It's important to remember that's always been there for you, like, not be somebody I can take for granted. I'm not taking anybody for granted. That's what I mean. Like, why don't I say what I'm doing wrong?
Literally, Pete's is going through a depressive episode, and you're like, you know, fuck Pete's, you know? You don't think that is something, like, that could be considered taking advantage of when he, like, fucking watches your cats while he go get banged on a disgusting mattress in a drug dealer's den? Are you kidding me right now?
By simply living my life, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, people get so fucking hurt over decisions I make, but it's like, I don't know. I made my decision, that's it.
If they're self-destructive decisions and they love you, then they should feel hurt. The fact that there are people out there who still feel hurt should say something. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. Love, the opposite of love isn't hate. It's like indifference. So when the people in her life stop caring one way or the other, when they're neither disgusted nor enthralled by your decisions, but or simply don't care, that's when it's going to hurt the worst.
So, it's like, you guys hate me for, I don't even know, like, whatever, for being a fucking mess.
I don't hate her. Most of the time, I don't hate her. I don't have the energy to sustain that level of hate towards essentially what is a sad, sad woman on the internet. But, yeah, people don't like you for your decisions, dude. People get to not like you for your decisions.
Or thinking I'm lying.
Thinking you're lying. You do lie. You've admitted as much.
But at the end of the day, like you, like, I'm not a piece of shit who, like, takes screenshots of people's books and fucking analyzes them and doxes people, and so I'm not actually a piece of shit like you think I am.
Sure, you're just a different piece of shit, right? I'm a piece of shit for a very specific reason. You're a piece of shit because of your entire life. How's that? Does that make you feel better?
So, I'm not lying, Sandra. How am I lying to you? You guys are believing lies made up by reaction channels, or fucking thinking that something's a lie when it's not.
When I can't trust anything that's coming from the primary source, I will look to secondary sources. And those secondary sources might be shady, but at least I know that they are coming with inbuilt biases, and at least I know that they're coming with inbuilt, like, filters, right? Like, you will hear a lot of people say that I think this is what happened. Chantel states things with absolute certainty. She makes shit up.
You know? Or whatever. But I'm not chasing people anymore in my life.
Except for Dom, right? Him you'll chase. His laundry you'll do. You won't do your own, but you'll do his.
If you want to stop talking to me because I'm seeing somebody you don't approve of, that's your problem. Why is that my fucking problem? That's why I'm angry. Why is that my problem? I hate when people fucking say, you're pushing people away. You're pushing people away. Why am I pushing people away? They're the ones leaving me. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. If you don't even want me to talk about it anymore, family, friends, whatever, I won't.
Look, if everyone in your life is leaving you and not wanting to talk to you anymore because of one relationship in your life, and you don't seem to recognize that maybe that one relationship is the root cause of all the problems you seem to be facing, then you're being willfully ignorant. More importantly, inaction is an action. Choosing not to do anything and expecting everything to remain the same is idiocy. The world always changes. Stuff always changes. So the fact that you're like, I'm not doing anything and people are getting mad. Yeah, you're not doing anything and people are mad about it. Do something. Change something about your life. Because whether you take an action or not to improve your life will continue to deteriorate as you age. That's just the nature of things.
And when I have to see my friends and my family, I'll do it separately. So, honestly, I just want to take off. I just want to take off somewhere. Like a foreign fucking country and live somewhere. Like, I swear to God. I do.
The problems you want to leave behind are problems that are going to follow you. You think you're not going to be a shit show anywhere else? You're a shit show here because you're a shit show everywhere. You're a shit show because your personality is a shit show. It's got nothing to do with us. It's got nothing to do with the internet.
So if I get surprised someday you see me, I'm in Fiji or Thailand or you know Vietnam or
I'd love that.
I don't know.
I'd love it.
If I have to, I'll die. I'll have to die if I have to.
I'd love it.
In the desert if I have to.
I'd love it.
I don't know. Maybe I'll just fucking block everybody again. I'm like honestly just tired of it. Like getting hate for what? Like being with somebody who fucking we had like.
Yeah. Go on.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Like I'm just not gonna fucking talk about it.
And that's where I'm gonna leave it. All right. The last thing that she mentions I want to really quickly discuss. She's like, you know, being with someone who, you know what, I'm not going to talk about it because there's really no good defense for the way that she's behaving. What is she going to say? You know, for being with someone who hit me, but only the one time, for being with someone who has a history of drug use, but he doesn't do it anymore. No one's going to believe her, and she knows that. She's being a piece of shit, and she knows that. That's why there's no excuse. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. I'm pretty mad in this video. I don't know what I'm going to do going forward. I'm going to try and upload again maybe tomorrow. Sorry, this was supposed to come out yesterday, but it just didn't happen. I just didn't get time to film. And yeah, give me a thumbs up if you agree with me on anything. Give me a thumbs down if you don't agree with me on anything and think I'm a piece of shit. Leave me a comment down below. If you guys have opinions or if you guys have any of the context that I asked for in the video, I'd really appreciate that. As always, you know, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Hit all if you want to know when I upload anything. And I've got all my social medias linked down below. I've got Instagram, Twitter, and I've got Patreon. Think of Patreon as a tip jar for the internet. You know, if you guys like the job I'm doing here and you want me to continue, please consider becoming a patron. It really does help me out. And when I get back to my own home and not my parents' house, I'm going to be buying that camera that I was telling you guys about because I finally have the funds for it. I'm real excited. I'm going to get a camera. I'm going to get some sound equipment. I'm like really looking forward to it. Thank you guys so much for making it happen. A special thanks to D. Higgins, who's my $25 patron. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me, genuinely. As always, I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. Peace.